How's it going, Sunbird Nation? I'm not sure if this video will be on my channel before the one about the cylinder head flowing on my buddy's flow bench. I am still trying to edit that one together, and in truth, he has my stock cylinder head. He hasn't flowed it yet. I left it there with my intake manifold, and he's going racing. So he didn't have time to flow it the day I was there. Said he would do it later in the week, and today is Thursday, and I called him and he said, yeah, I'm going racing, I'll do it next week. So I can put the video together without that. I just figured I'd wait until they all go together. So anyway, in the meantime, my cylinder head has been assembled. I put it together. Valve springs are in. Funny thing with the cylinder head, the camshaft is a Kent, I think it's an AST 52, and I got the corresponding springs they recommend, and I went to put it together. And let's see if I have a picture of one, or if I have one in my hands. I'm sure I do. The new springs that they send me will not fit over the exhaust valve rotator. This is the intake side. It's just a metal shim. It just goes in the head and keeps the spring from galling against the head. But the exhaust side is a very thick rotator. I'm sure I have one of. I was going to find it. Make me a liar now, go ahead. There's a spare parts bin that I had nearby to steal stuff out of. Well, perchance I don't have one in here, but anyway, you can probably get a decent look at it if I got a flashlight. The exhaust valve side, yeah, you really can't see it very well, but in the base of the spring, there is a rotator. It's a metal disc. It's very thick. It's about 1/4 inch thick. And what it does is it rotates the exhaust valve. So every time the valve opens and closes, the exhaust valve actually spins. You can see it right there, how thick it is. See it? It's really thick. The exhaust valve spins because exhaust valves get really hot and the intake valves don't get as hot. So the exhaust valves will tend to burn if they just sit in the same place every time. Back in the old days, pre-1970, for American cars, they didn't have rotators, and they used to burn valves a lot. So in 1970, Oldsmobile came out with a valve rotator, which is basically 2 pieces of metal with a kind of a clutch thing in the middle. So every time it opens and closes, it spins like an eighth of a revolution, like this, boom, boom. So it just rotates the valve, exactly what it sounds like. And the problem was the rotator has a seat on it that the spring fits inside of, and my new springs are too small. They're an 810 inside diameter, and the rotator was like an 840. The seat that it sits on, that the spring sits on, so they were physically too small. They would fit right on top of that seat. I didn't want to do that. I could have ground the seat away and left the rotator face flat, but I didn't like that idea either. So in the end, I put the springs back on, and I checked the tension on them at the installed height. The Kent springs were about 90 pounds on the seat and 200, 205 open. The springs I'm using here, they're beehive springs. They're smaller at the top than at the bottom. You know, they neck down. They get bigger as they go down, like an LS engine. Anyway, I call them beehive. I guess beehive and a true beehive, they're small on the bottom, fat in the middle, small at the top. So these are conical springs, you want to call it that, okay? Anyway, these springs measure it was 75 on the seat and like 180 open. So I put a 30,000 shim under them, and that bumped it up to it's around 80 on the seat now, and right around 190, 195 open. That's close enough to the Kent springs. I mean, with the stock cam, I could take this thing to redline. You know, that the computer shuts it down at 64.99, I believe. And when I found out I had no second gear, I was recording it on my scanner, and I saw it hit the rev limiter every time. So I know those springs were controlling it. With this Kent cam, the shape of the camshaft lobe is different. You know, it might be more aggressive, the ramps, all that stuff. So you can't just say this spring will be fine because the pressures are similar, but they probably will. So I hedged my bet. I put 30,000 shims in. I bumped the pressure up slightly. It should be fine. Funny thing is, I was going through my extra parts like here, and I found a brand new set of valve springs that look just like the Kent springs. I didn't measure them, ID and OD, but they're straight, just like the Kents. You know, the Kents, I'm not going to take them out of the box, but they're a straight spring. You know, there's no beehive, no cone shape. They're just a traditional straight spring. You know what I mean? Top to bottom, same size. So the ones I had look like that, and you know, it's been a long time. You know, I built this engine like 2010 or so, 2009. And as I recall, I bought brand new springs from GM, and I recall that the old ones I took out were stiffer than the ones that were going in. So I stuck with the ones that were stiffer, which may very well be these. I can't remember anymore. So anyway, one more weird thing, you know, because it has that rotator, and the rotator has that step on it, if you want to call it that, the inner sleeve part, to put shims in, the shims won't fit. You know, shims are, I don't have any loose. They're just like a piece of sheet metal. This is a shim right here. It's just a piece of sheet metal. It's got serrations on one side, so it doesn't rotate as much. If you look at them, it actually says this side up. And this wouldn't fit over that step in the rotator. So weirdly enough, I put them on top, which my friend, you know, Scott, the machinist extraordinaire, said, that's weird, never seen it before. I've never seen it before either, but honestly, what's the difference? All you're trying to do is close up the gap between the retainer and the seat. Whether the shim goes in the bottom or the top really has no consequence, as long as it doesn't get in the way of anything or hit anything. So as funny as it looks, I put them on the top, on the exhaust valves only. Then the intake ones, they fit in the bottom. Again, you probably can't see it, it's way down there. It fits in this little gizmo here. So that's the story, something weird to look out for. I mean, sure, I probably could have tried to find a shim that was the proper ID to fit over the seat and the rotator. But my luck, it'd be too big on the OD, so it wouldn't clear the side of the head with a spring. You can see this, like, the pocket is tiny. It barely even clears the spring. So rather than screw around with that, I just said, you know what, stick on the top, it works. So that's that. On this side, long time ago, one of my spark plug holes stripped out, which isn't uncommon in aluminum heads. So I put in a threaded insert. You can see it kind of right there. And I actually have new ones over here. Here, just Napa, you know. This is a short reach, it's a 1/2 inch long. This is a long reach, 3/4 inch long. I want to say our heads take a 3/4 inch long because the spark plug is so long. But all you do is, it's like a threaded insert, like a tap and die helicoil. Basically, you just you get a kit, and it has this reamer, and you just run this thing in. It cuts the threads for the seat, the threaded insert rather. Screw the threaded insert in, and you put some Loctite on it as it goes in, and you're done. As simple as that. So I had done that years ago, and I didn't realize I was hanging out about 1 thread worth. And even my porting guy was like, wow, get rid of that. Well, that's a hot spot. So I ground it down. I sanded it all nice and rounded and smooth. So if that was a hot spot, it's gone now. While I'm here up close, you can see the O-ring that Scott put in for me. The original O-rings were in it. He didn't realize it, neither did I. So when he planed the head, they popped out, and then he couldn't find the same size wire to go back in. I don't know what size it was an odd size. So he had to recut the O-ring grooves and go to, I want to say it's a 41 thousandths wire, which is more common. So he had to O-ring groove the head and put new O-ring material in, which he hated. If you look at his channel, Power Plays Automotive, just look at Power Play, you'll find it. He shows you how he does it and bitches about it the entire time. So thanks again, Scott. I don't know why I'm thanking him. I paid him, but you know, whatever. I was going to put a threaded insert in this spark plug hole because it's a little wobbly as you put the plug in, but once it's in tight, it's tight. It's seated. It doesn't wobble. It feels fine. I mean, this one feels about the same. I'm not going to rethread all of them. So if you noticed in my engine, there was a divot in this piston. And even Scott asked about it. And as I recall, that was from me putting this insert in. When it stripped, the engine was together. I wasn't taking it apart for that. So as hacky as it sounds, you know, many years ago, I ran the reamer in with the piston at TDC. I don't know if I stuck a rag in there to get the chips and stuff, but I did it right with the engine assembled. And then I just blew it all out and sucked it out with a vacuum and ran the engine with the spark plug out to blow it out. You're not gonna hurt anything doing that. I mean, it's aluminum, you know, it's softer than the piston and the wall and all that stuff. So I did do that many years ago. That's the divot the piston is from. But anyway, so the head's ready to go. Springs are installed, retainers are installed, the spring height is set. I turned my attention to these studs. I cleaned the studs all up. They are 1/2-inch ARP studs because I don't like torque to yield bolts. And this thing's been apart so many times that, you know, the bolts, you only use them once anyway, and I would have gone through probably 8 sets of bolts. But one thing to watch out for, again, this is only if you go down the same road I'm going down, which is the odd road. Here's the original head gasket I took off. These holes for the studs, for the bolts, are not 1/2-inch. So those I must have reamed out with a step drill. I just did it with my new head gasket. I'm going to stick with the Isuzu 2.2 head gasket. And I reamed the holes out. You know, all you do is take your step drill and just, you know, exactly as it sounds. You bring it up to the size land you need and you just run it in. That's it. You know, you got to be careful you don't destroy the head gasket surface, you know, chew it up. Because this thing has a coating, it's like sticky. And then when you're done, just deburr it, you know, because it raises a little edge. So you deburr it a little bit with a jackknife or a screwdriver or your thumbnail. I mean, it's not a hard edge. And then just blow off any pieces you might see. You don't want them getting between the head gasket and the head and the deck and causing a leak. This head gasket, again, is an Isuzu 2.2. I bought a bunch of them years ago. I have a few left. I'll probably buy a couple more for the future, but that is the part number. This one's made in Australia, which is delightful. I don't know what this means. Just a shipping label, I guess, but it's a 8-091-290-40-0 cylinder head gasket for Isuzu, and I even wrote on it, my chicken scratch, 2.2 Isuzu. I used to have an Isuzu Amigo. It's the exact same cylinder head. This is basically the same engine, just a 2.2 version of it. So make sure you drill those holes out, otherwise the studs won't fit. I mean, as it is, they're tight. You know, it's a tight fit, but it fits. Come on, get in there. Yeah, I try to do it one-handed, but it fits. So that'd be a hell of a surprise. You put the hat on and go put the studs in and say, hey, this thing won't go in the hole. But again, this is only if you're using a 1/2-inch stud. My block is tapped to 1/2-inch. These motors originally were a, whatever they are, 11 millimeter, 12 millimeter, whatever is just under 1/2-inch in metric parlance. It's, you know, that's what they came with. So if you're not gonna put head studs in like I did, 1/2-inch head studs, you don't need to worry about it. I believe now ARP makes a metric head stud for these motors. At the time they did not, or I was too dumb to realize it. So that's why I have 1/2-inch ARP studs. All right, is there anything else to talk about today? I don't think so. I went over the valve springs and the shims. I went over my insert. What else? The O-ring, the head gasket modification. The studs are all clean. I think we're ready to put the head on. I still have to clean up the cam carrier, stick the new camshaft in it. So the head, I can rest on it. I guess that's it. So I'll wrap it up for today. Thank you for watching. If you're building a 2-liter turbo Sunbird, I wish you the best. If I can help you at all, let me know.